26 minutes before the hour of 10. This is Radio Nigeria, Coal City 929 FM. And welcome to our home run segment on this part of the breakfast show. And it doubles as well as our interactive segment. Today we discuss a critical issue affecting many Nigerians. The idea and the discussion centered around depression and economic hardship. We're exploring the link, and we're talking about weathering the storm, managing depression in Nigeria's current economic downturn. And in the studio, we still have Dr. Chiedozie Okafor. He's a senior lecturer, social and political psychologist, Department of Psychology, Ekwueme Federal University, Ndufu-Alike. That's it, yeah. Ebonyi State. He's also an advocate for psychological education and policy, so there's a lot to gain from his insight in this conversation. Thank you so much again for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Ekwueme.
All right, my name is Ekene Odigwe. I will be your guide. So let's talk depression, as it were. It is a conversation that many people, before now, people shy away from using the word. Lately, people use the word a lot that it has watered down, I don't know, the meaning or even what it could portray. And for some others, it's just a word you're thrown around. The same way we had, words like diversification and all of that thrown around, lost its essence. And so let's talk, as it were, the term.
Yeah, thank you, Ekene. Depression is a psychological disorder, that is characterized by lack of interest in the activity that you used to, like. Is also characterized by feelings of hopelessness, worthlessness, and meaninglessness. We talk about the cognitive triad when we discuss issue of depression, because when you are depressed, clinically, you think about yourself as worthless, you think about the future as hopeless, and think about the present condition as meaningless. So it makes you to withdraw from the activity that you used to like. Those activities that you used to find interesting, you withdraw from them. You may become irritable, antagonistic, So, and at extreme cases, you may have suicide ideations. You may think about committing suicide. So, people go through depression on a daily basis anyway. There are some depressions that are not clinical. There are what we call diurnal depression. Sometimes you wake up in the morning and you feel blue. You don't feel like talking to people. But by 12 a.m. or 12 p.m. that day, you are brighter. You can talk to people. But, the person becomes clinical when it continues beyond the point at which most people begin to recover. And then there are triggers to depression. There are activities that can bring depression, like, threatening life experiences, hardship, economic condition, frustration, a sense of self-insufficiency, these are issues, disappointment, heartbreak.
We're currently experiencing an economic downturn, yes? So that could be a situation for some people.
Yes, that's a situation for many people.
So how do we, I'm looking at how that hardship contributes. You've mentioned situations as part of the things that, factors. And we have a situation a lot of persons can relate to.
Yes. The economic hardship, the relationship between depression and the economic hardship is the perception of your inability to provide for yourself and your family. That frustration, that sense of perception breeds frustration that you cannot provide your basic needs. Even with the resources that you have, you cannot take care of your loved ones. You can't even take care of yourself. You can't do what you want to do, the basic thing that you're supposed to do for yourself. You cannot do it. So if the sense of meaninglessness comes in. And sometimes a sense of worthlessness. You as an individual, for example, the breadwinner of the family, you are no longer the breadwinner. You cannot provide for your family. That thought of inability to provide degenerates into worthlessness for the self, meaninglessness for the system, and hopelessness for the future.
It's well captured, almost very beautifully captured. But it's also worrisome because for someone in that state, we always say, examination of conscience, the best truth is the one you tell yourself. So when you are in that state and you need to push yourself out, people develop coping mechanisms.
Of course.
And these coping mechanisms do not always pan out well. That's why I said it's so beautifully captured, but then it's also beautifully worrying.
Yeah, just like I say that the link is perception. Do you understand? It's also at that point, or that perceptual point, that you also exonerate yourself. You can also, get that kind of deliverance. Let me use that word. Now, it's all about cognitive restructuring.
What does that mean?
Cognitive restructuring, changing the way you think. You think about the economy, for example. If you are thinking about you and the economy as something, you're thinking about yourself in relation to the economy as someone that is dependent on the economy, you're going to be frustrated. But if you think about the economic hardship as an opportunity for you to widen your horizon in terms of revenue generation for your family or yourself, then you're likely to scale through of it, because this is a time where you develop more skills, open up more channels for income.
Is it realistic?
Yes, it's realistic.
Is it feasible?
It's feasible. It depends on the individual, because it depends on your job and how you want to manage your time. You can have to
paint us a scenario. It's easier to have the conversation when you are speaking in figures and in third person and referring. But when you have relatable scenarios, it's easier to maintain or relate to, and it could always help in situations.
Okay, let me give an example with civil servants. Depending on what you are doing, if maybe you are a teacher, you may have more time to yourself. Yes, if you are a teacher, you may have more time for yourself than someone that is a banker. A teacher may have maybe extra 3 hours away from the school hour. A banker may not have such a time. Now, as a teacher, you may schedule your time in such a way that you have something you do after work hour. You have a little business that you do after work hour. It may be computer center that you opened up, or it could be a consultancy service that you give after work hour. Something that generates additional source of income, that starts with additional source of income. So you do it after work hour. You schedule your time. Even as a banker, you can also be a consultant. Now that we have internet technology, we can leverage on it, on technology. It mustn't be a physical interaction. It can be an online consultancy service. So that's why I say it depends on your job and the time you want to create for yourself. But what I'm trying to say is that right now, it depends on the way we think about the economy. Why I say that is that, first of all, I used to advise people, if there is any problem you're having, let me say this economic situation, the first thing you do is to accept it as a reality. Because I see some people who pretend that nothing has gone wrong, and they're trying to keep on. Let me use an example. You are the head of the family, you are the breadwinner of the family, everybody depends on you. The economic hardship has come. Even at that economic hardship, you know that your strength, your providence strength has been lowered by naira devaluation and the hike in price of goods and services. Yet, you don't want your family to know that things has gone wrong upstairs. Now, you are struggling beyond what you do. Like in the office, you may maybe getting corrupt to feed your family. Instead of explaining to them that the economic situation has brought this and we have to shift to this. The family need another business. You won't explain to them. You keep on pretending that nothing has gone wrong. Meanwhile, you are spilling your blood in your work. Do you understand? On the table of corruption, just to provide for them at all costs.
So for some people, they would argue that it is a way of you delivering on your task and being a breadwinner.
Yes, nobody is asking you to deliver on your task, but let the people that you are leading understand that things have changed.
Okay.
It's a matter of communication so that they also think with you, because you need that empathy. You need that empathy for them also to understand what is happening. You can, if you don't shoulder it alone, I don't advise people to shoulder it alone, even if they're not going to contribute financially. Let them know what you are passing through.
Okay.
Let them know the extra job you are doing to help the family.
Let's talk back a bit on coping mechanisms. What has been like, how Nigerians, or what coping mechanisms can help Nigerians manage situations, especially as it were now, depression and economic hardship downturn. It's such a very tight spot.
Yeah, there are three things that I used to advocate. One is a community support. The second one is self-management. Another one is skill development. On skill development, like I said, you have to build yourself again to have additional source of income. Do something that is related to what you know very well and what gives you joy. Because if you develop a skill along the line where you have passion, it will not conflict with your job. If you do what you have passion for, it's very easy. You find it easier doing it in addition to your job. Now, that skill development, we can leverage agriculture, technology in agriculture. Today we are having vertical farm. We can practice vertical farming, greenhouse agriculture. We have a lot of things that we can do that without traveling so far. When it comes to agriculture, you combine it with the irrigation, and you do very well any time of the year. Now, if you look at also the issue of self-management, that is where psychology comes in. You can consult a psychologist, you can consult the service of clinical psychologist, social psychologist, go for counseling so that you better understand yourself, maybe through psychotherapy, and also get some professional advice that will help you. Now, on that self-management too, there is also need for you to restructure the way you think about the economy, which I've said. Do self-regulation when it comes to crisis. You avoid too much of bad news. You do more of exercise, meditate, organize yourself, reduce the kind of expenses that you make and where you travel, where you go to normally when the economy was good. Now, on the other parts of I've talked about skill development, then self-management, then community support. Right now, people are beginning to build community support, even without knowing what they're doing, but we are building community support right now, where you have group of friends coming to develop food banks. I've seen such a thing, where they develop food banks, such that they do it in such a way that they contribute money, at the end of the month or at the end of every first quarter, second quarter, third quarter of the year, they share the money, not as money, but as food that have been bought with those money they contribute. Isn't
that what it's also meant for?
That's that kind of, do you understand? But this one, you don't now talk about sharing that money, but you share it in terms of food. Do you understand? Now, again, when you talk about burden, now people are beginning to also, share the burden of other people. Like I've seen so many WhatsApp groups where people contribute money for burial, for wedding, for this kind of social support network that people build these days to support each other. In this economic hardship.
These are the things we've done unconsciously.
That's what I'm saying. People are developing even without knowing what they are doing. We should amplify it. We should make it more systematic. Then we should get into it. So we should get into it, consciously, and also develop other means of fortifying it. Build more social network, not only within the friends that are physically present, but across board, across the globe, across the internet, the continent, so that it will become something that is systematic, and all-encompassing.
All right. coming up to 5 minutes before the hour of 10. Is it 5? Yeah, 5 minutes. And as we begin to wrap up this conversation, what can our listeners do to support their loved ones? I know you mentioned about community support, some things we're already doing unconsciously. Could we find a way to link that to some things people can begin to do consciously to support their struggling loved ones?
Yes, of course. This is the age of technology and mobile telecommunication. People, unfortunately, has reduced the strength, or I would use the word, the strength of physical communication, on one-on-one communication. Yes, so I think first of all, we need to reignite that culture of visiting people, visiting our relatives. Yes, once in a while you visit your relative. There's this thing that there's people talk about privacy. Maybe I don't want people visiting me. I don't want, you can call me on phone and we talk about what we want to talk about. But most of the time, people have problems and they are hiding those problems from us. People don't have money. They are struggling financially and they don't want anybody to know because they don't want to expose their vulnerability. It's not that they don't want help. So sometimes...
Could you just have a very good reason that why they don't want to exposure?
People are afraid of becoming objects of laughter. Maybe this is someone that has been doing well before, but he's no more doing well now. So sometimes he needs help, but he doesn't want to expose that. So sometimes let's check on people. Do you understand? Because there are certain things that money cannot solve. But there is this emotional connect that you do when you visit your relative. And even the conversation in that process may bring solutions to the person's problem. You may not give him money, but you may connect him. So something, a contract, a job, an idea that can bring money. So we need to reignite that culture of physical contact, physical interaction, meeting, visiting. That is one thing. We have to make it conscious. You understand? So apart from this idea of financial contribution during times of difficulty, when somebody exposes his a difficult time, we need to begin to reignite that culture of meeting people on one-on-one.
I would think also part of the conversation is how do we strip the stigma attached to that as part of... Because, like you said, vulnerability, yeah, but for someone to open their mouth to tell you, I'm depressed, I mean, they've at least trusted you to some point. So how do we begin to have that from home to talk to a professional, to talk to, I don't know, anyone that could matter?
When talking to a professional is good, but there are certain things a professional cannot solve for you. Professional can give you advice, give you the opportunity for psychotherapy, where you now purge excess emotions, talk about your problems, but actually that may not solve the problem because you need action. Do you understand? That's why I talked about trying to meet people. Because, people are afraid of talking about their problem. Most people are afraid of exposing their vulnerability. And, vulnerability cannot just be exposed. Because you need to trust people that you expose, your vulnerability to. So that is why we have to make it a point of duty, a cultural, a system where we visit. Because maybe you're in Lagos and I'm in Enugu, I can't just pick up my phone and start telling you anything. But there are certain things that I can tell you on one-on-one. I can't tell you on phone.
Well, I think it's also a case of how it and where it works and the type of relationship people have with people.
Yes, but
social media played in a lot of into that. You mentioned technology.
Yes. Social media emasculates that relationship. Social media try to hide a lot of things. Social media anonymizes the two people behind on keyboard. Do you understand? Behind the keyboard. So, and you may be calling somebody on phone and you don't know whom the person is with. You may be chatting with someone and you don't actually know that the owner of the page is not the operator. So these are certain things that we are afraid of. But when you see me one-on-one, you know exactly
who you're talking to. All right, thank you so much, Dr. Chiedozie Okafor, Senior Lecturer, Social and Political Psychologist, Department of Psychology, Ekwueme, Federal University, Ndufu-Alike, Ebonyi State, for joining us on the program today. It was really a pleasure to hear you share your thoughts. And thanks to the producer, Jude Obu. Supervisor has been Joy Obitilata, and executive producer has been Okechukwu. My name is Ekwueme. Thanks again for joining us. Stand by for the news on the hour.